Any further questions for the applicant?
Did he go through his 5 minutes? I don't think he did. I think we went right into questioning.
Well, we did because I thought he was finished.
Oh, okay.
Do you have further comments?
No.
Okay.
I cannot.
Any further questions? Okay, we will conclude the public hearing and we'll bring the matter back for discussion. Okay, well,
I think we have two basic issues. One is the roof ridge, the roof lines, and the size
Yeah.
of the project. When you look
yeah, I think what Commissioner Foster's saying is it looks like we are wrestling with two issues. The height of the ridge and the size of the structure and the impact on, quite frankly, the impact on ocean views to the neighbors on the south side of Via Media. And as I mentioned before, I visited Mr. Nendick at 508, Ms. Covington at 516, and I spoke to Mr. Holman at 524. We also have other speakers tonight extending down the street. Mr. Eagle, Mr. Landerville, and Mr. Talbot did not appear tonight, but he did submit, Mr. Talbot lives at 516, and he did submit a letter with pictures indicating that his views were impacted. And that's consistent with my observations when I was there. I do think the proposed remodel and addition has a significant impact on the ocean views of these individuals. I think because of the location of the new addition on the east side and running north-south, the impact of ocean views seems to become more significant to residents on the south side of Via Media as you move east. And what I'm troubled with is it appears to me as though the applicant already has pretty expansive ocean views and is seeking, obviously, to add additional square footage and enhance those views, and sadly at the expense of these neighbors. That, to me, is unfair and unacceptable. I'm also concerned about, again, I'm confused and troubled by, we obviously have more square footage added and more lot coverage than is approvable. And that needs to be addressed as well. I understand the architect will have to address that. But I think in addition to addressing the size of the project, I think he's going to have to address the impacts on the neighbors' views, which I contend are not acceptable and need to be mitigated. For me to consider approval of this, I agree. I think the roof over the new deck needs to be removed, and the remaining portion of the roof lowered, at least to the height of the existing north-south roof on the east side. So I think some additional work needs to be done with regard to elimination of the deck roof covering and a lowering of the height of the addition. So for those reasons, I'm not positioned to approve the project tonight.
Thank you for that. I think you covered the main issues, obviously the neighbors' view impacts, but I want to dig into a couple other concerns here. One is the hardscape. There's a lot that's being proposed here on hardscape, and if you look at the property now, there's a fair amount of landscaping, and they're getting rid of a lot of that, and that what feels like they're turning this property into really just an entire hardscaped property. And it's bumping right up against the maximums that are allowed, and they may be in the right to be right below the maximums, but that's really, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. The total proposed building coverage is at 29.9%, which is 30% is the max allowable. That doesn't really leave a lot of space for wiggle room. I don't think we've ever had 29.9. I think we've asked them to kind of come down and leave a little bit of breathing space into that. And so that's a major concern of mine, the heights of the roof. And let's talk about this being a double lot. It was mentioned earlier, but, it looks like in the previous renovation when they added what is now the current driveway on what I'll call the west side where it comes out towards the ocean, the east side is where the pool is, and that really is the existing view corridor. And I know, if we go back into history, we've talked about this, view corridors are really how Palos Verdes Estates was designed to leave those open for neighbors. This proposed design would eliminate that view corridor. And I think it's not just the neighbors right behind, but there's this perpendicular effect where neighbors off to all the sides who are looking to the north, to the east, are going to be affected. So I think the collateral damage is not just from the 5 or 6 houses. I think it's a much larger impact here on the view issues with the neighbors. So I have issues, these conditions to approve. I mean, they're sort of, they haven't really checked any of the boxes yet for me. I mean, they're changing the contours of the land. This new driveway that's going sort of underground through the opening in the wall is interesting to me. The hardscape issue, and then just the collateral damage on the existing views and eliminating the existing view corridor. I think once that goes away, it never comes back, and I think that would be terrible for the neighborhood. Mr. Foster?
I agree. My initial concerns as well is I think the roof design needs to be looked at, the overall size of the project and everything that you two have said.
Okay, I think the commission has spoken that we are not in a position to approve the project as proposed this evening. We would offer the applicant the opportunity for a continuance to our next meeting, regular meeting, which would be
October 15th.
October 15th. And again, if the applicant is willing to accept that continuance, I would encourage the applicant to look at, again, lot coverage. Has been pointed out by my colleague, Commissioner Campisi, and I don't disagree with him. There's a lot going on in this lot, a lot of hardscape coverage, and I didn't even get into that because I was so confused over the building coverage. I would encourage the applicant to look at the building lot coverage and make sure that we are not coming in at, close to 30%, because that's just pushing the limit here. I think some serious consideration needs to be given to not only removing some square footage, but also the covering over the outdoor deck. And again, I would look at significantly lowering the ridge heights for the new addition. That's at a minimum. So if the applicant were prepared to offer that the continuance to the next meeting, is that acceptable to you? So I will make a motion that...
Mr. Chairman, wait, can you wait? Mr. Parks, can you come to the podium, please?
Yes, the continuance is acceptable, yes.
It seems like you're going to have to do a major design. I just wanted to make sure, are you going to be ready for the October 15th meeting, or would you like it continued to the November 19th?
I need to talk to the property owners, and can I get back to you on that, or do we?
Okay, then let's continue it to the October 15th meeting.
October 15th.
Yes.
No, actually, it should be the next month, after
November?
The November, yes.
Okay, then the November 19th meeting.
Yes.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we continue this matter to November 19th, to our regular meeting on November 19th.
I'll second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
And Mr. Parks, the sign that's outside on your property, can you please change the date to November 19th.
November 19th.
So all the neighboring properties know that it's been continued to November 19th.
We'll do so. Okay.
Thank you.
One last thing, too. All the changes will need to be re-silhouetted, and we will need a silhouette certification along with your resubmitted plans.
Yeah, understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 remaining items. We're going to let Commissioner Nendick know she can come back in if she's in earshot, and we're going to take about a 5-minute recess, and we'll reconvene about 8:15, and we'll take up the remaining 2 items. Now we're back in business. And we'll take up now item 8, which is neighborhood compatibility and grading applications for a new single-family residence at 4016 Via Larga Vista. And let me first ask whether commissioners have any ex parte communications or other activities to disclose at this time.
I'll start. I visited the neighbor, 4020 Heather Schuckert. Spoke to her. Nobody was home at the applicant's.
I likewise spoke to Heather Schucker at 4020 Via Larga Vista.
I toured the subject property, visited the neighbor, 4012, but no one was home.
I did site visits with 4020, 4021, and 4025 Via Larga Vista.
Okay. Okay, let's see here. All right, can we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair Wade. Tonight's presentation is a neighborhood compatibility and grading application for a new single-family residence located at 4016 Via Larga Vista. The neighborhood compatibility application is for a 2,036 square foot first floor addition. I'm sorry, 2,036 square foot first floor, a 1,905 square foot second floor, and a 492 square foot garage. The grading is due to quantity of cut and fill exceeding 250 cubic yards. This is all located on a 8,995 square foot lot. The proposed total floor area is 4,433 square feet. Again, I need to make a correction to the maximum allowed square feet. On the staff report, it says 3,360 square feet. It should be 4,449 square feet allowed for the lot.
Wow.
The proposed floor area comparison is 165% of average of the floor area of existing homes within a 300-foot radius. Proposed floor area ratio comparison is 162% of the average floor area ratio of existing homes within a 300-foot radius. There is approximately 274 square feet of gross floor area proposed. The proposed building coverage is at 28.7% with the 30% maximum allowed. Proposed total lot coverage is at 58.5% with 65% maximum allowed per the municipal code. The proposed maximum building height is at 28.92 when measured from a intersecting natural grade elevation of 410.9. And there is approximately 238 cubic yards of cut and 7 cubic yards of fill. The findings required to approve, as well as staff's recommendation, is included in staff's report. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for me this time. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Jeffrey?
Yeah, Mr. Graham, can you just reiterate the correction you made? Proposed total floor area, it's 4,433, and you said the maximum is 4,449?
Yes. 4,449 square feet is maximum allowed.
Max allowed, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Wow.
Jeffrey, this is going to be a total demo then?
Yes.
Okay. Do they need to provide a demo plan?
Not with this neighborhood compatibility application.
Okay, anything else for Jeffrey? If not, I see Mr. Johnson there. Keith?
Get my slideshow up, please. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Keith Johnson with Pritzcat and Johnson Architects. Thank you for taking the time tonight to review this application. At the neighbor meeting, we had positive feedback for the project. This new two-story home will be replacing an uncared-for, dilapidated structure, which, when completed, will improve the appearance of the neighborhood and increase surrounding home values. Next slide. I designed the home to meet the 4 objectives of the Neighborhood Compatibility Ordinance, which in part is why we did not receive any suggested modifications or concerns regarding the design of the house from the neighbors. Next slide. The land gradually slopes up from the street towards the back of the property. To preserve the natural amenities but also make the home more usable for my clients, the different yard areas have been terraced. The front yard is at an elevation of 409.75. The main level and rear patio are around 411.38, and the upper lawn is 4 feet above the rear patio. Next slide. The size of the home is between 150 and 200% of the neighborhood average in this transitional neighborhood. We have an additional 8-foot setback from what is required on the upper level that reduces the massing from the street. We have minimal gross floor area, which also helps to reduce the overall massing. Because we don't have to have the setback the same on both sides of the house, we've given more setback to the one-story neighbor to help mitigate the impact of the second story. The height above natural grade is similar to what the easterly neighbor got approved through neighborhood compatibility process. Next slide. This slide shows how if you connect the line between the 2 adjacent 2-story homes, our ridge line falls within that envelope. This slide also shows the larger setback we provided to the 1-story home. Next slide. While we have a balcony on the front elevation that is the width of the house, it is narrow and would not be conducive to a gathering area, as its main purpose is to enhance the transitional Mediterranean architectural style of the home. The balconies are off of bedroom and spaces, so there's no intent to have large gatherings like you would if breaking out from a public space. This helps to preserve privacy of the adjacent neighbors. The upper level windows on the east elevation are located in bathrooms and are 4'10" off of the floor, which helps with any privacy concerns. On the west elevation, we have 2 bathroom windows and 4 bedroom windows, all the same size, and they are all 4'10" off the floor. The bedroom windows are along the bed wall to bring in natural light. These windows would be hard to access with furniture in the way and are high enough off the floor to help preserve privacy. Next slide. The neighbors behind our project were not able to attend the neighborhood meeting, so I met with them separately to review the plans. Their main issue with the project was the condition of the existing trees in the rear yard. Their landscape architect and arborist said that because they have not been maintained, they are in pretty bad shape and need to be removed. My clients agreed to remove the trees and plant a hedge in the back tall enough that would block the view of the house and the master balcony and provide privacy for both neighbors. This is documented on the plot plan and site sections. I'll end my first part of the presentation this time and take any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions for Keith?
I know. You.
None? Okay, I see that there's no miscellaneous applications, so there's a number of proposed walls and structures on the site plan. I assume we've got nothing that requires a miscellaneous?
Correct. They're all under 6'6" or 3'6" in the front.
Okay.
Do you know if the neighbor to, when you're looking at the house on the left, has a pool or any water? Just because you're taking down the chain link fence that's on their property, it says, so if they have it, I was just worried, and I couldn't tell from Google.
So I don't think they do, and I've been in touch with that neighbor. He's emailed me a couple times because the fence is on his property, but when we move those trees that are growing into the fence, I just told him to contact my client. They've been in touch to decide how they're going to re-fence the property on the property lines.
Okay, because there's no new fence on the property line, so that's why I wanted to make.
Right, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else for Keith?
A quick question. I know the people next door, that same family, they're willing to agree to whatever as long as those trees disappear. But I think we have to make clear that we don't have the right to say anything about trees. So that's the PVHA if it's on public property, right? And private property. So we just want to make that, I want to make that clear that we don't have any say in that.
Yeah, she did mention, Heather mentioned that to me when I visited, and she said, you know, we're kind of hoping that we can get some of this overgrown foliage removed, and I noticed from the site plan, you have about 15 trees in here that you're going to propose to remove.
The clients, they bought the house as it was, basically, so their intention is to clean up everything and bring it to take.
But I did tell her, and as Commissioner Nendick mentions, I said, the applicant's going to have to go to the Homes Association, and I'm presuming that you have not done that yet, so you don't know for sure.
We've submitted to the Homes Association. I mean, it's on the plans. I don't know if we specifically filled out application for tree removal, but they didn't comment on any of the removal of that.
I know in my own case, when I was going to remove trees in my property, I had to go to the Homes Association and I can get it reviewed by them. So, I did tell her I understand that they're representing that they want to remove these trees, but I don't think the approval is there quite yet, so be aware of that.
So what you're putting back, then you're taking those trees out and then you're putting a bunch of trees back in?
A more maintained hedge. Just because the arborist was saying some of the trees may fall over, it's growing into the...
No, I get that part.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to take out and then put in and have the same issue.
No, my clients are going to work with the neighbors behind them and come up with a planting solution that also we need to take through the fire department.
Okay, any other questions for Keith? So I think I don't have any cards from anyone wishing to speak on this item. Does anyone wishing to speak on the Via Larga Vista issue? If not, you have another 5 minutes if you think you need them.
A few more things to say, please. Next slide. Part of the application before you tonight includes a grading application. One of the reasons we are triggering the grading application is due to pushing the house down into the ground. While this is typically done to protect views, I did it in this case to have slightly higher plate heights, which allows me to have arch top doors that aren't squatty looking or too tight to the ceiling. The other reason the application is being triggered is the amount of cut in the backyard. Currently, the backyard of the home is sloped and overgrown. To make the rear yard more usable, I've created 2 levels. Next slide. I do not feel these changes to the grading are unreasonable changes to the natural contours of the land, as we are still keeping the general flow of the land, just done with terracing instead of a single slope. Qualified contractors will be used so the grading will not cause any hazardous conditions to the adjacent neighbors. Our civil engineer will work with the Public Works Department to get a drainage plan approved that will not allow for uncontrolled water runoff. Next slide. Just as we feel the grading findings have been met, we feel the neighborhood compatibility findings have also been met. The new home is roughly the same location as the old home, and I've considered the natural slope of the land with our terracing. Based on the numbers and the neighbor response and support, we feel the home is compatible with the neighborhood character. We've worked with the adjacent neighbors to find a solution to address the existing trees and their privacy concerns by proposing a new hedge. Existing views were not interfered with as a result of our new home, so we're looking for your approval tonight. Next slide. I do have one request regarding the conditions of approval. Number 5 is a standard condition. Number 28 seems to imply that we can't do anything in any easements. This is not true. In HOA easements at the sides of the property, we've always been allowed to do hardscape walls and fences. For example, if I were to required to move the walls out of the easement, there would not be enough clearance for fire department access along the east property line. There is a utility easement in the rear, and we have not shown any walls in that easement. I'm not sure why this condition needs to be here, and it will just complicate the approval process later. I would ask that it be removed, since number 5 basically says the same thing, but is worded better and allows for review and approval by the PVHA, who is in control of the easement in the side yard. If you have any other questions, happy to answer them too.
Okay.
I have a quick question, just back to the front deck that you're talking about. So that's one continuous deck across the entire width. And
Yeah.
so I think you would characterize it as not, nobody would congregate on there.
Correct.
What's the sort of the reasoning behind?
It's off of bedrooms, so it's not like a living room party situation where people are going to flow out of there. You know, someone may be sitting out there or something, but it's only a few feet wide on one side and maybe a little deeper on the other. So it's not, we can't get a lot of furniture out there either.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Which side of the property is the utility easement? I see the HOA easement.
It's the rear property line.
Rear, okay.
It's a 5-foot utility.
Okay, there it is.
So the balconies in the front, what are the widths on those? Just offhand? I know. I'm standing and not talking into it, but I'm asking about the widths of the balconies in the front.
So if the depth, I guess you're asking, is
Yeah.
5 feet, and then on one side and 7.5 on the other.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Keith? Okay, Hearing none, I think we are ready to bring this matter back and discuss it at the commission. Someone like to start?
Question for staff, did we receive any written correspondence on this?
From a real estate agency, yes.
What?
No, I
One
don't.
piece is online.
Oh, from, yep, okay.
Calgary,
Yep,
I think.
that's the one, got it. Okay. Go ahead, Janine.
It's hard because the people aren't complaining that much. I mean, they want it cleaned up because it's bad from their point of view. One resident did say she felt it was just too big and massive, that it's not in keeping with the character. And, so I tried looking and seeing, we were told for ages that we're supposed to keep the FAR 40% maximum, and this is 43.8, so that worries me. That shows me that it's got more. And I was trying to see relative to the other homes, and this would be the third largest home in the area. And the second largest one has me dumbfounded because the square footage that they're giving on it right now is already more than you're allowed to have, and that doesn't include the garage. So I wonder if the second largest one if it's really that big, but I don't know the answer to that. And the largest one is on an 18,000 square foot lot, and that one's about 900 square feet more. So I worry that it's a little bit, and what the person was saying is that because the peaks are so sloped, it's 6 and 12, and it's all to the front, it gives a feeling of being right there. So that's my worry thing about this, that, this isn't a neighborhood with really high plate heights. It's not a neighborhood with all this. I don't know the exact answer. I want to hear what everyone has to say.
Yeah, I have somewhat of a concern of 4012. This looks kind of like it's sitting in a hole between these two properties, two neighboring properties.
What is that one?
I think that the setback mitigates that to some degree, but it's still putting that property in a valley.
Yeah, I had the same concern as well. And nobody, although Ms. Schucker did indicate, the house is pretty tall, and I think it's taller than ours, I think she was more concerned about having a new, better-looking home next to her and getting rid of the overgrown foliage. But she did have some concern about the height of the project. And that's kind of my concern as well, is the size and the height of this. And as Commissioner Nendick said, this is the third largest home of 50 within a radius of 300 feet. And the lot size is only 102% of the average, with only 14 lots larger. So we have a very large home on an average lot. And at nearly 29 feet, we have a very tall home. And it appears to be taller than the Schucker residence, although it's within a matter of about a foot difference. And I agree with Commissioner Nendick, but I think part of the issue that strikes me when I look at the structure is the two gables in the front give the sense that it's a very tall home, and the Schucker home has a kind of a hip roof, which looks flatter. So, and the pitch on the two gables is like 612. As Keith did indicate, the house also has high plates, 10.6 on the first floor, and I see 9.1 on the second floor on the east side and 10.1 on the west side. So I'm struggling a little bit with the size of the house. We're at 4,433 square feet with 6 feet less than the maximum. So we're really pushing the limits here at 165%. I'm personally a little concerned about the height and size of the house, and I know the neighbors are not out complaining about it, but I think we have a responsibility as a commission to look at this with fresh eyes.
Yeah, I agree with those percentages. I think it's a little bit out of line here. I know that the neighbors support it because they're looking to sort of improve that property that's been dilapidated. I'm inclined to approve it with some conditions to bring the roof pitch down. I know Mr. Johnson has never been a fan of us changing his architectural style or making changes like that, but I think in this case, it does warrant it based on the look and feel from the street, bringing down the height. I would even say maybe going down even lower, the first floor elevation and bringing that down just a little bit more to just reduce the impact of how it looks from the street. It looms over everyone else except the Shookers because their house is sort of, already a large house too, but it's not as large in total size. So I think we're kind of on the same page with the concerns.
So you're mainly focused on the height? I'm a little bit concerned about the size, too.
I think it's just hard because we've been told for so long 40% FAR maximum. And and that's why we get the comparison sheets. And I know it's written different now in the staff report, but that's the number we're looking at. So,
So what would it take to get to 40%? I guess we're at 43,
ideally
we're at 43.8%, right?
and then
So-
we have to do, I think Keith
40
probably could do the math faster than
40%
me.
is a 3,500 square foot house. We're at a 39, so we're talking roughly 400 square feet.
Is that right?
If you look at the
You're probably right.
150% of average right above on the sheet,
On the
it gives the math.
I would say something less than, well, this is almost 44%, but be mindful as we go through the floor area ratio for some of these properties, some of the recent builds, and there haven't been too many, but some of them, well, there's one at 45.9%, one at 50.6%. That would be one of the largest homes.
Well, the 50.6 is the one those numbers are weird on it, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it's
Yeah.
possible how that thing would be more than 1,000 probably square feet bigger than they're allowed to have. So something seems wrong with that number. I don't know.
The 1990s.
There's another one at Picapo's 41.6, so I'm not wedded to 40% exactly, but I would like to see the house come down, or I don't know, maybe it's the gable design of the roof that strikes me, and maybe we're not looking at a lot of reduction in height. I don't know that the roof could be changed in some way to alter the pitch. The pitch on the two gables are 612 is pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
I don't have a specific recommendation on the floor area size, although it seems a little large, so.
Well, if it was a little over 41%, that's 3,700 square feet.
So 200 square foot reduction.
The numbers keep getting higher and higher, and this FAR was something that they stuck to so religiously, and it keeps getting pushed out further and further, that it's a difficult thing, so, I do think it needs to be a bit smaller, and I think it needs to, if they want to have the 6 and 12, it needs to get lowered. Something just has to change the impact that you're feeling for it.
That kind of summarizes it right there. That could be the request back to the applicant, is to bring it closer to 40% FAR, reduce the roof pitch. See if they're willing to
Or
do that.
lower it somehow so
Lower
that it
the
doesn't
lower.
give that impression. I
Yeah, because
agree.
they are a little over a foot taller than the neighbor's house,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I'm not looking at, any 4-foot or 5-foot reduction. I'm trying to get it, and I'm mindful of what Mr. Johnson presented when he was looking at the homes in the area, and it's relatively close to that level, that flat level. But I think because of the roof design, I think if you brought it down 2 feet,
It's the high-pitched gables that give it.
yeah, I think, and maybe did something with the gables, I'm not sure it would have the same impact of mass and looming nature, and I agree, we should take, a couple of 100 square feet of floor area out.
Okay, how do you want to accomplish that? With a continuance or with an approval with conditions?
And I think you need to give him the choices
Yeah.
to do what
Yeah.
he do.
All right, Keith, you're hearing what we're thinking, so,
Can I just get clarification on this 40% FAR? I've never heard that before.
It's been around forever.
In what?
And that's why you see it on the floor
What is-
area
but what is it-
ratio
what
on
has
the
it been in?
neighborhood compatibility chart. It's a ratio of floor, so it doesn't include your garages. It's a ratio.
I know what a FAR is, I just don't know why it has to be 40%.
Well, because we go by whatever the precedent's been for years, and this was the conversation for years and years and years and years. And since I've come on, it seems to have, we don't hear about it as much, but, I mean, they were adamant for years that you could not go over 40%. Now they're going over a bit, we've been going over a bit more, but it's just to keep the bulkiness down, they used to say. It's the, I mean,
so I think my sense is the 40% is a guideline, and I've seen it written in neighborhood compatibility documents when I first came on the Planning Commission. And when I see numbers over 40%, I look at them a little bit more carefully, and I think that's what we're doing here.
That's fine.
I don't think it's, I mean,
And-
I've seen other approvals of lots with a higher FAR. So I think, you've got to apply some common sense to this, and it's not a hard and fast rule, but I think what troubles me is the height and the square footage at this particular location.
And I'm
That's
willing
what
to
strikes me.
lower the height or look at changing the pitches to make that happen. The square footage, you're talking about maybe 200 to 300 square feet coming out, which is a bedroom. And we kind of have a tight floor plan, and I'd rather have them get the square footage of the house than feel like they have to do like an ADU in the back or something like that, which is going to be 800 square feet. So
Yeah.
I think,
then maybe we should see what you do, because you're going to be able to show us more than,
Right.
we could have all these ideas.
No, and I think lowering the house will help and be able to keep the square footage then, because I just I know I can make my case next time, but just to avoid a third meeting, that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. But I'll take a continuation.
Yeah,
Square footage needs to come out.
Yeah, I think if we were to give you a continuance, you know what we're thinking.
Before we end this discussion, I think the wall that in the very back, the grass area that's raised up, it looks like the wall is already, what's the height of that wall? Top of wall is 416. I guess what I'm saying is there could be some collateral impacts if he brings the house down, that wall might be taller in the back. And I don't know if it's going to be.
It'd be taller, but it's measured from existing or natural, so it's not going to change my numbers or
Okay.
trigger miscellaneous.
Gotcha.
All of his walls are fine,
Okay.
basically.
All right, I don't think this is a complicated ask from us, so next month, could we have you?
Next month is fine.
Okay, so I would move that we continue this application to our next regular meeting, which, again,
17th.
help me out, it's November 17th?
October 17th.
October
October
15th.
15th.
15th, okay, October 15th. Do we have a
Second.
second? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Chairman Wade, before you go on, Keith, on the sign, if you can change the date of the sign to October 15th. Have the sign, thank you.
Okay. All right, and our final item is item 9. It's a neighborhood compatibility application for a new single-family residence at 3436 Via La Selva. And I will ask again whether Commissioners have any ex parte communications or other activities not in the record that warrant disclosure at this time?
Yeah, I viewed the subject property, contents of the neighbor's doors, so that wasn't able to find anybody else.
Okay. All right. And I likewise went to the subject property and made an effort to see the neighbor at 3432, the Katzmans, but was unable to do so. I did visit the neighbor at 201 via Navajo, and also went to 3433 PV Drive North twice, but was unable to speak to anyone there. But I did observe the project from the driveway at 3433, and I did speak to the neighbor, Ms. Smith, at 3429 PV Drive North, and she expressed, we went into her backyard, and she did express some concern about height and potential privacy issues to her, although she said they're probably not as significant as what the neighbor at 3433 might experience. So those are my ex parte communications.
I visited 3432 via La Selva, spoke to Christian Katzman. I also visited Rosemary Miller at 201 via Navajo.
And I did site visits with the owners at 3432 Via La Selva, 200 and 201 Navajo Place, I guess.
Via Navajo.
Via Navajo?
No?
Oh, is it Navajo?
It's Navajo
Place?
Place.
Okay.
My bad.
All right. We will then ask Jeffrey for the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Wade. Tonight's final presentation is for a neighborhood compatibility application for a new single-family residence located at 3436 Via La Selva. The scope of work includes a 1,920 square foot first floor, a 1,665 square foot second floor, a 14 square foot mechanical closet, and a 417 square foot garage. All of this will be located on a approximately 8,000 square feet, 8,036 square foot lot. Proposed total floor area is at 4,016 square feet. And again, I have to make a correction to the maximum floor area allowed. It should not be 3,360 square feet. It should actually be 4,018 square feet. The proposed floor area comparison is at 152% of the average floor area of existing homes within a 300-foot radius. The proposed floor area ratio comparison is at 180% of average floor area ratio of existing homes within a 300-foot radius. There's approximately 174 square feet of gross floor area, and the proposed building coverage is at 29.1% with 30% maximum allowed. Proposed total lot coverage is at 64.2% with 65% allowed. Proposed maximum building height is at 28.92% when measured from an intersecting natural grade elevation of 95 feet. And the findings required to approve and staff's recommendation is outlined in staff's report. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for me at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Jeffrey? All right, hearing none. Mr. Leach, we tried to keep you, put you the last man up.
Thank you. Good evening. First off, I want to thank whoever put this table here because it's very, very helpful. So thank you for that. It's a big deal. It's so helpful to have that to lay out the plans. So I am here tonight with Davis Moore. He's the owner of the property. The proposed home will keep the existing footings and existing perimeter and existing floor joists and the existing garage slab. The property slopes about 7 feet from the front to the rear, and no existing trees will be removed. The adjacent homes to the east and the west are obviously one story, as well as the home behind the property. The adjacent property to the west is on average about 3 feet lower than the subject property, as our property slopes 3 feet from east to west, and assuming the street keeps going that way, it's about 3 foot lower lot. The property behind us is much lower, as you can see depicted on the cross-sections, the site cross-sections. The home across the street, obviously fairly new, I'm not sure, 10 years ago maybe. Spanish house is 2 stories high. It's a very nice house. The rear setback is 39.19 feet, which is well beyond the 15-foot minimum requirement. The proposed second floor deck was situated in the middle of the property, not on a corner, not on either corner, but in the middle, to mitigate privacy concerns. The secondary bedroom windows and 2 bathroom windows are proposed along the sides. So we don't have any major windows along either side of this house. The size of the home is 152% of the average of the neighborhood, as you see on the chart, which is well within bounds of what's been approved recently. The architecture is a combination of beveled siding, batten board, and brick. And we do have preliminary art jury approval. The plate heights are 9 feet 9 inches on the first floor and 8 feet 9 inches on the second floor. The neighborhood meeting, you guys were dark last month, so the meeting was actually quite a while ago because I had everything in time for the meeting last month, but obviously that didn't happen. But so the neighborhood meeting was quite a while ago, but it was attended by about 5 neighbors or so. The neighbor to the east, adjacent neighbor, was supportive. The neighbor to the west, the husband was not there, the wife was there. I gave her my phone number. She specifically said, my husband wants to talk to you, and I gave her my phone number, but never heard from them. Likewise with the neighbor behind and over one who wrote a letter, but gave her my phone number as well and didn't hear back from her. Some neighbors at that meeting expressed privacy concerns. So if I can take you to sheet A1C. This is my hedge sections, obviously drawn to scale, and they show that if the moors provide a 10-foot hedge at the rear of the property, and I'm looking at section A first of all, up at the top, but if we provided a 10-foot hedge at the rear property line, that would mitigate privacy for the neighbor right behind. The neighbor that wrote the letter, I mean, this same diagram could be applied, and actually the angle would be higher for that neighbor because it's a longer distance to the property line, and that house is actually closer to the rear property line than this house, shown on section A. So the angle would change, the angle would uplift, it'd go up higher, and privacy would be maintained. Although there's a lot of trees back there right now, so there's already, in my view anyway, a lot of privacy existing. And then the section B is a section cut through the house, the backyard to the west. And the section shows our deck at the second floor. And if we were to provide an 11-foot hedge, that would mitigate all the privacy for that backyard. Okay. We'd like to listen to there's some neighbors here tonight, obviously, and we'd like to listen to what they have to say. And I know I have 5 more minutes, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have right now.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Leach?
I have one question. I don't know if I'm reading the plans right or not, but it looks like on page A6, we're showing on the second floor of the west elevation, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows. And on the floor plan on A3, on the west side, it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 windows. So am I reading that right?
1, 2, 3, 4. You're right. You're absolutely. I think the bedroom number 2 window is missing.
Yeah.
counting the window and the staircase is shown. And so really, I'm showing 5 windows, not 4 windows. So there's only one missing, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Mr. Leach?
You'll like this one. I think you have too much square footage, because you have, where you have the FAU, we have to count that as square footage because it is plate height higher than 7 feet, or 7 feet or higher.
No argument, right?
Okay, so that has to be. And the other thing, we did this, we had a joint meeting to discuss what square footage was, lot coverage, whatever. And the square footage is from the outside wall to the outside wall. It's not from the window to the window, because the windows are inset in the walls that stay here. So we count the square footage from, and you have a threshold out to the wall. So we count from the outside of the wall to the outside of the wall, not from the window to the window.
No, I totally agree with that, but what I have, I definitely counted, sorry, I don't know if you, I'm not.
Upstairs, you counted from outside to outside, but downstairs, you can see on L, it's a shorter distance. So M, L, well, things are a little bit skewed because it says JJ, so it should say JK, I'm sorry, on page A1B.
Right.
It should go JKLL, but you have 2 J's, no L.
Okay, okay.
But in any case,
I know where you're going with this. So those are not windows, those are French doors.
either the French doors, they're inset. We go from outside of the wall to and we have a threshold at the bottom that goes to the outside of the wall. So the square footage is from, the code is clear.
But the area outside the French doors is open, it's outdoor area.
I'm just trying to say that that's how it's always, and when you go upstairs, you have the French doors going out and you're counting the whole area, which is how it should be. So all I'm trying to say is that we have to count all the areas, especially, this is so tight number-wise that it start, and then the other thing, unless I'm going crazy, when you add your numbers of A to O through O together, they don't come out to 1920. They actually come out to 1910, I think.
1929. Yeah, I'll double-check that myself.
So I think that
But I guess I'm pushing it back about this whole thing about French doors that are recessed back a foot or a foot and a half. You know, from my hand, from the door to the outside face of the wall is not there. You're outside the house.
it just, we did this whole thing with a joint meeting, and it was clear it's from outside wall to wall, so it just kind of skews things to start moving the inside wall. So, I mean, we can talk with staff and what have you, but
Yeah, I mean,
how I was told is outside wall to outside wall, and that we have to count all of it in, because you have the threshold that goes out. You have the wall up here
The
goes,
threshold doesn't come out a foot.
well, maybe your things are a foot, I don't know all of your numbers.
Threshold comes out 2 inches beyond the door.
Okay, in any case, your picture shows me the threshold coming out in some of these ones, so all I'm trying to say is that I think you need to talk with staff about this and make certain it all gets clear,
Okay.
because the numbers then
Okay,
are what you're allowed to have.
I'll work with staff. I mean, this would be, anyway, I'll work with staff on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions for Mr. Leach? All right, that'll be the applicant's first 5 minutes. I have a number of speaker cards. The Katzmans, let's begin with Christian, followed by Melissa.
I have Melissa go first, yes.
Can I go first, please?
Sure. As a husband, you always want your wife to go first, right?
Yes, thank you. Okay. All right, good evening. My name is Melissa Katzman. I live at 3432 Via La Salva. I'm actually going to